Hello, this is Dr. Mike, and today we are going to begin talking about Chapter 10. Remember, this is a short week, and your class ends on Thursday, so try to have your work completed by Thursday night. If you have a problem, need an extension, I can extend through Sunday, but Sunday is my absolute drop dead. I have to have your work by then. I appreciated this class. I think you should appreciate it when you look at the vast array of materials that we've talked about in making you a better professional in the job where you are. Almost any job that you have today will involve doing many of the chores that we have talked about that are the common fare of most office places, workplaces anymore. Even if you're working in manufacturing now, many of them are using the teamwork concept. And when you're working on a team, you're actually running the factory and cutting out the middle managers, and you become that. You get to have the experience of managing your section of the workplace, make sure that it runs properly, that you are operating at a profit. So you learn a great many things in the workplace, and it's very helpful going in to have a few skills such as the things that we talked about yesterday on informal reports. Today, we're going to expand our base, and while I'm opening the slides here, we're going to talk about the prospect of doing more formal reports. Sometimes those are necessary and important. And and proposals, sometimes you'll do those as well. So we're going to kind of go through these and talk about how you can learn to do those. And you learn. You don't want to be embarrassed, especially if you have to present in a meeting. You don't want to be, of course, embarrassed in front of your boss or coworker. You certainly don't want to embarrass your boss either, which would be might be a career-ending move. So we want to understand the importance and purpose and the components of both informal and formal proposals. You might be asked to make a proposal of a project that you would like to see brought to fruition in your workplace. By definition, a proposal is a written offer to solve problems or to provide services or to sell products. It's important because proposals can mean the difference between life and death for an organization. An organization that is not growing or not adapting or not changing will, in this economy, soon be put out of business. And that's extremely important because competition is so great today, not only in your town, but from around the world. And the goods that you might be doing or the thing you might be doing can always be done better by someone else. There are generally two kinds of proposals that we talk about. One are internal proposals that are often justification and recommendation projects where you want to improve a process. No matter whether you're a nurse or you're a vet tech or whatever it is that you're preparing to be, there are always ways to internally improve the job that you are doing, and it saves money. Many times companies will offer you a bonus for saving money, and it's amazing how that adds up. So, just the smallest change might indeed mean a savings of hundreds of thousands of dollars for a company. There are also external proposals, which are usually respond to requests for proposals. Say you're doing a process and they ask you for a proposal to do whatever it is you do at their home or their business location, and you want to be able to do that in a way that would be very helpful. So the components of informal and formal proposals are pretty much the same. You start with an introduction and you end up with a conclusion, or you get the authorization to complete your project. But you certainly want to look at the background, the problem, the purpose for an informal proposal. And you want to have a plan and a schedule, staffing, budget, and a conclusion. Those are all very important. You do not want your company to lose money, especially if you're making proposals to build, to do whatever it is you do. You want to be sure they're in the profit category and not in the loss category. Components for informal and for the formal proposal, you will get a request usually for a copy of a request for a formal proposal. A letter of transmittal, usually it's called a abstract or summary, a title page. You want all these pieces, table of contents, list of any figures or drawings that you might want, introduction of the body of the proposal, the background, the problem, the purpose, proposal, schedule, plan, then staffing, budget, authorization. And then there'll be an appendix at the end where you cite materials or whatever that you're going to do. Formal proposals, by their nature, then, are a little more longer and take more time, very, very time sensitive. They're also time sensitive in usually the turnaround. You really want to get a proposal back because they may have sent out 5, and you certainly want to be in the running when it comes time to be considered for the job. So basically, in an informal proposal, you want to talk about why this proposal is being written. Remember, this is internal, this is in-house. You're trying to save the company money or time. You highlight your qualifications, strive for a persuasive hook, such as, we could produce extraordinary results, or we could lower costs, or we could get done much quicker. You got remarkable resources we could use today. What really happens in a business if they don't stay abreast of current changes and improvements in processes will become redundant and outdated. You cannot keep doing things the same way over and over and be successful in this day and time, because someone will come along and put you out of business. We did that with a company when I worked for Schlumberger. This is back in the 70s. They had a Japanese firm that wanted to come through and see what we did. And you keep in mind now that this is 1970s. There was no cell phones, there were no internet, there was nothing of the sort. And they wouldn't allow cameras in the factory. So they came through, but they sent people that had photographic memories who looked at what we were doing, went back to their hotel room and drew everything they had seen that day. And they improved it as they drew it, and of course, put us out of business. So today it's much easier to do. Sometimes they don't even have to leave confines of their desk because they can find so many things on the internet of what you were doing or producing, and usually can update it and cause you to lose business. So basically, and it's a big deal. This week, for instance, the United States made a deal with Australia to supply them with nuclear subs, and they had a deal with France, and France became angered for losing that business. They withdrew their diplomats from both Australia and the United States. So now we have a diplomatic problem that has to be dealt with. So there's all kinds of things that go on with that. President Trump in his last term stopped a lot of the purchases from China. And suddenly we realized that most of what we were buying from China, if you shop at Walmart, you go in and see empty shelves. Walmart has a super tanker they send to China once per week. It goes over there empty because China doesn't buy anything from us. It comes back full, fills our shelves. And so stores really, because of these things, are struggling trying to keep materials on the shelf to sell for different things. When we look at the background, problem, and purpose, it's important that you identify the problem and what your goals are. For unsolicited proposals, you need to describe what the existing problem is. And for solicited proposals, that is those that you've been asked to do, use the language of this formal proposal and show that you understand the problem and how to fix it. Present your proposal for solving the problem, describe the implementation plan, the methods used to gather data, and include a schedule or timetable of activities toward completion. Most employers are concerned about work disruption, time it will take, how much it will cost them in lost man hours. All those things are important. As far as staffing, you need to explain the credentials and the expertise of the main project leaders. Who is it that's going to be directing the project? What are their qualifications? What is their history? And how are they going to benefit your process? Show the superiority of the support staff, the necessary resources, and prove to clients they have qualified staff to implement the project. And I think that's very helpful. As far as budget and authorization, you want to itemize the cost carefully because proposals are legal contracts. And if you propose something and it's going to cost $10,000 and you come in over budget at $20,000, you're going to have a lot of hurt feelings and angry people, because people like to be surprised when you come in under budget. They do not like to be surprised when money has to be found and you have to look for ways to pay for something. Mention a deadline for accepting bids if needed, request an approval or an authorization, and then make it easy for the reader to respond. The second objective was to describe the steps in writing and editing formal business proposals, and you can read these in more detail. They're posted on the site, but just by definition, a formal report is a document in which the writer analyzes findings, draws conclusions, makes recommendations, intending to solve a problem. Formal reports and formal proposals are similar. They're lengthy. They as far as organization's concerned, professional tone, all those things are similar. However, unlike proposals, formal reports do not propose changes or respond to a formal proposal for change. So basically, if you're going to write a formal business report, like you do in every other writing assignment you have, you determine the purpose and the scope. You anticipate what your audience is going to need in order to understand it, decide on a work plan, appropriate research methods, conduct research using primary and secondary sources, organize, analyze, draw your conclusions, design graphics to clarify the report's message so people can see that. And that's vitally important. So what do you review when you're editing your formal business report? Well, first of all, look for format. Formatting, making sure everything is formatted correctly is highly important. Your heading levels, make sure they're consistent, make sure everything's accurate, including your numbers. If you made any computations, go through and recheck your computations. Consistency, you want the report to flow. You don't want to be wandering off into left field somewhere. You want to include graphics and be sure that you cite the source of those graphics if you're borrowing them from someone. And then the mechanics of the paper. I cannot tell you enough how important the mechanics are, that you check your grammar, your spelling, your syntax, everything. Use Grammarly.com. Great way to find things that you don't see. One of the things you don't realize is that when you edit a paper, your brain sometimes plays tricks on you, and it allows you to see things the way that they should be instead of the way that they are. So please use whatever tools necessary in order to get the job done. As far as our third learning objective, conduct research using primary, secondary sources and understand how to assess the credibility of a source. That's something that we do learn by using. Your sources have different levels of credibility. Sometimes you use online databases, JSTOR, Business Source, LexisNexis. You really should use these. You still have to look at them for, carefully, but you should use databases because these are usually peer reviewed. That means someone has looked over them before they were published and guaranteed that their feasibility. Secondary sources, you can get them from print, books, periodicals. If you're going to, do something online, be sure that you, cite it, first of all, and look at where it came from, second of all. I would not use Wikipedia still. It's considered to be a non-dependable source because anybody can go in there with a login and change anything they want to. If you want exact wording, if you're searching for something, put it in quotation marks, or add define when you're looking for a definition, or related when you want similar sites like to the New York Times that you are looking at. These are just some helpful things that will make your research much easier. To show results with one or several choices, include an R, Super Bowl winner of 2015 or 2016. Include an asterisk as a wild card to find an unknown word. Saved is saved is earned is part of a sentence. Use the word Boolean and or not in your search strategies. I really encourage you to learn to use the internet to search for things when you're doing papers to get into deeper understanding. So basically, you evaluate web resources and their credibility. They have to have a certain currency, like what is the date of the web article? You certainly don't want to use an article from 1990 or 1991. You want to use articles that are more recent. When was the website last updated, or is anything out of date? That should be a red flag when you're evaluating a website. Then look at the authority, the credibility and authority of the person doing the writing. Who publishes or sponsors the page, what makes the author an authority, is contact information available. All those things add to the authority of the person. Then, of course, the content is always important. Is the purpose of the site to entertain, inform, persuade, sell? Who's the intended audience? What does the content compare with content elsewhere? Does it seem to be authoritative? We live in a day when there's a tremendous amount of misinformation, and it's important that the person doing the research qualifies the sources that they use, because you can probably find anybody saying anything you want. That doesn't mean it's true. Accuracy, do the facts seem reliable? That's what I was just talking about. Do you find errors in spelling, grammar, usage in a article you're reading? If that's the case, then that should raise a red flag that they didn't edit the work. And can you detect bias? What is this person trying to sell me? What is he trying to convince me of? So basically, when you conduct primary research, you are looking for answers. You can do surveys, interviews, observations, and experimentation. You always have to document those. So identifying the purpose and techniques of documenting and citing sources in a business report is vitally important. It is something that most people are afraid of, they don't do well at, but you need to give credit. It is ethical, and these are the benefits. It strengthens your argument. It protects you from charges of plagiarism. It lets readers know where to learn more about the topic. So you always have sources that you cite in your paper. To avoid plagiarism, you need to give credit whenever you use the following: a person's ideas, their opinions, their examples, their theory. When you use any facts, statistics, charts, drawings that are not common knowledge, another person's exact spoken or written words in quotation, paraphrases of another person's written or spoken words without quotations, visuals, images, any kind of electronic media, you need to be sure that you cite that to keep from being accused of plagiarism. So one of the ways to do that is to practice the art of paraphrasing. You want to write the same kind of thoughts that the person had, but not using their words, which brings you up on the plagiarism scale. So you read the original material intently to comprehend its full meaning, write your own version without looking at the original, avoid repeating the grammatical structure of the original and merely replacing words with synonyms. There are actually programs out there that will do that, and they do not work. Do not go out on the internet, by the way, and pick up a paper written by someone else, because our plagiarism machinery will catch you. I had left Clemson years ago, and I got, probably 4 or 5 years after I left, a report from Turnitin that said one of my students had tried to use a paper that they gave me 4 years before in another class, and it caught him. And of course, he was accused of not being honest about it. And you can lose your whole career over that. It's not worth it. So when and how to quote, beware of overusing quotations. You do not want to use many quotations in a paper. The shorter the paper, the less you use, and the more careful you are about but you still, even when you don't use it, you still have to cite the source and let people know where it came from. Copyright information, 4 factors for testing fair use rule: purpose and character of the use, nature of the copyright, and sustainability of the portion used, and the effect of the use on the market that you're dealing with. So it's very interesting to look at that. You want to convert the report into meaningful visual aids so that people can see them. And I'm going to let you look at the rest of this report and see the different kinds of visual aids. Rather than talking through them, I think the visual aid itself is worth worth looking at. So just in review, the components of a typical formal report, you have a cover and a title page. I would get used to using a title page for anything over 1 page long. That's just good advice. You might have a letter or a memo of transmittal if you're sending it over some kind of email or whatever. You have a table of contents. Always have a list of illustrations, and then you kind of have an executive summary, and then you have the full body of the report. So be sure you read through each of these and look at them carefully so that you'll know exactly what's required of you if you're doing a formal report. So I think it's helpful to read through, to understand, to grasp all these things. Okay, I will see you on tomorrow as you continue your work on this program, going through the text. Be sure you read the text and respond. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.